Hi everybody. So apologize, we're running a little bit behind, but for any of you guys that are gonna join us, I'll wait for some people to pop on. In the meantime, we'll go ahead and introduce. I have my friend and colleague Amber Bravo here, and we did a video together about concerns, or how, like, if you have concerns of your child's developmental delays, or if you think they might be on the spectrum of autism, basically what the signs are, what to do about it. So if you're interested in that conversation, go ahead and go back to that video. You can see that on my YouTube channel under To the Moon and Back Behavioral Consulting on YouTube. So today we are going to go ahead and talk about how to open these challenging conversations. You know, as parents, sometimes we see our little red flags go off, these warning feelings in our gut go off that maybe something's not developing quite right. Maybe, we go to a class and our child isn't at the same developmental level as the other children, and we're kind of wondering why. We're wondering if it's something that we should be worried about. And a lot of times, typically there's one partner, one spouse that does the majority of the parenting, or is more in contact with the child than the other one. And they see more, they experience more, and so they usually end up having these feelings of like, something's wrong. But the other spouse that doesn't spend that same amount of time with them, like, doesn't see what's wrong, doesn't know why they're so concerned, and it seems kind of out of the blue. So how do you, as the parent who has the concerns, open the dialogue and open the conversation? This is going to be touching on not just kids with special needs, not just kids that are developmentally delayed, but maybe you have, and you know that you need outside help for handling some behaviors that you don't want to escalate and get out of control later when your child is older. So maybe having that conversation of let's seek a professional, like a parent coach like me, to at least get some information and some help with that. So Amber's gonna take it off at the beginning.
Yeah. No, fantastic, Nikki. Great intro. So again, yes, hi, I'm Amber Bravo. It really kind of comes down to the fact that you want to have this open communication, right, with your partner. Sometimes your concern might be something that's a gut instinct, or maybe somebody else has approached you on the topic, and you're like, okay, well, let's see if we can get our partner on board, be united in front, and address these concerns, right? So it's really important to make sure that when you do go to have a conversation with your partner or whomever else that you're trying to approach this topic with, that you kind of get in this mindset of being open-minded, making sure that there's no shaming or blaming, making sure that you use things like I statements, like I believe or I feel this might be happening with our child, something to that extent. In addition to making sure that you approach them in a way that's very constructive, right? You want to say, hey, I'd really like to pick your brain about something, or I do have a concern, can we schedule some time to chat about it later, as opposed to like, oh no, I have a bone to pick with you, or like, we need to talk. Already people are intimidated by phrases like that, and they might become defensive and not really open to hearing and listening. So you want to make sure that when you do approach, somebody, that it's going to be coming from a place where, all right, let's brainstorm about this. Let's maybe present some solutions. Maybe you don't even have any at that time, but just be like, hey, I just needed you to know what I'm feeling and thinking, and then going from there. So I know you have some tips too on this topic.
This actually, I consulted with a therapist colleague of mine, yes. And I wanted to make sure that I was bringing you guys good information that actually came from a professional that knew knew this information, because sometimes, to be honest, like I kind of struggled too. Like, how do we, hi everybody, how do we bring up these topics, especially about parenting? Because I mean, my husband and I, we have totally different parenting styles, and a lot of the reason is because, you know, he works outside of the home a lot, and I'm here with our daughter much more, and so there is that clash, and there is a difficulty with having these conversations about child rearing. So what my friend suggested is, she says, you know, before you even have open this conversation, like Amber suggested, with these non-invasive, non-threatening phrases, right? You want to make sure that you get clear in your head, in your mind, in your heart of how you want to bring this up. And you want to, for all intents and purposes, stick to the facts. Get rid of any type of drama or story that may be attached to it, because we all have that. If we're upset about something, if we're passionate about something, emotions get into it, right? So you want to kind of create a list and sort it out on paper, your thoughts, and kind of, you know, you can write it all out and get all these, you know, all your energy and all your emotions out, but then kind of go back and scribble out, okay, is that fact or is that not fact? Is that my story or my interpretation of what's going on, or is it purely fact? And you want to be able to kind of like gauge it down, so that when you do approach your significant other about this conversation, you're telling them in a way that you're presenting them with the facts. And who can argue with facts? You can't really argue with facts, but yet they can argue with your feelings or your interpretations. Right. So you want to leave as little wiggle room for that as possible when you're trying to communicate openly and solve a situation.
Right. It kind of keeps your emotions at check, so that you're clear, and your information's going to be more well received that way as well.
Definitely. So so start off with a list, and don't make it this huge list, because then it's going to be overwhelming for you, and it's going to be overwhelming for your spouse. So dwindle it down to maybe a couple bullet points, or like 2 topics that you really want to address, and then you're gonna make sure that you phrase it in such a way that you're like, this is a conversation, this is a 2-way conversation, and I really value and want to hear your views on things, and your, you know, how you're taking it. So that way they know that it's not just you kind of coming in and taking control and pointing the finger or telling them this is how it's going to be.
Right.
You know.
Because chances are, whether you believe it or not, your partner might have that gut instinct too, or maybe another inkling. Right? Or maybe they've been thinking about it, but might be in denial, depending on the severity of the concerns that you have regarding your kiddo. Exactly. So you might actually be really surprised or relieved at their response. You know, like, yeah, babe, I've been thinking that too. You know, because that might be best case scenario. And then if not, you know, then sometimes it might take a little bit longer, right? Like, accepting this information could be like a big pill to swallow, you know? I actually am aware of this poem that's really cool. It's by Emily Kingsley, called Welcome to Holland. I'll just kind of paraphrase it right now. But basically, she states, you know, like, having a baby, right, is a little bit like deciding that you want to go on this like ultimate vacation. Like, I've always wanted to go to Italy, right? So you research, you know, you might even learn a few key phrases, and like the anticipation of this like really awesome, you know, like lifetime, you know, moment. And everybody gets excited, you start telling everybody or what have you, and then it's like pregnancy. You pack your bags, the days come, you're getting excited, you know, and you're like, okay, here we go, I'm all revved up, we're going to Italy. You jump on that plane and you're going, and all of a sudden you're starting to land, and the flight attendant says, welcome to Holland. And you're like, wait, what? Like, I'm not supposed to go to Holland, I'm supposed to go to Italy, right? And so they're like looking and trying to figure this out, and they're like, no. But everybody says, no, you have to stay in Holland, right? So your expectations have changed, right? But when you really stop to think about it, Holland may be different than Italy. It's a little slower, it's not as fast-paced, but there's nothing bad with Holland. Yeah, you know, it might not have the Colosseum or like the Venice canals, but it has Rembrandts and windmills and like all these like lovely rolling hills, right? And so you learn to kind of accept and appreciate Holland, right? So that's a little bit about Emily Kingsley's poem. I highly recommend that you guys look it up. It's called Welcome to Holland. But if you come from this like nurturing place or this accepting place, then when you do approach the conversations with other people, whether that's your partner or even taking it a little bit further, like the next steps, like after the conversation, then you'll find that you're in a little bit more of a constructive place and not a destructive place.
Definitely. So just when you approach this, you know, the situation, kind of try to stay neutral in your mind of how it's going to be received. Don't already say, oh, they're going to get all upset and they're going to be this or that, because like Amber said, they might surprise you and they might say, hey, you know, I've been kind of thinking the same thing. I've just been afraid to say anything, you know, so, and there is a different level. Everybody receives it differently. Everybody reacts differently to certain types of emotions that come up within them. So they might get angry. They might get, you know, they might start laughing because it's uncomfortable. I do that sometimes. And it's just a matter of coming into it with an open perspective, and then also focusing on the present moment. So rather than bringing in arguments that you had, you know, months ago, or the last time you brought up a concern and your spouse didn't listen to you and look how it turned out, you know, because that just drudges up old stuff and it just really triggers people. So trying to keep it as like, this is what's happening now. How can we work together as a team now to be able to solve this solve this in the best interest of our child? Because ultimately that's what any parent wants, you know? So if you come of it from that perspective, it really helps to kind of diffuse the situation.
Exactly.
And then getting clear on your non-negotiables is really important. When you're making that list that I was talking about, what are your non-negotiables? What are the things that are just you're not willing to give on? So that might be that you're your child's best advocate and you know that something's wrong and you want to seek professional advice or some sort of professional consultation, and that's your non-negotiable. It's gonna happen. But the negotiable part of it, the part where there can be some compromise, is how would you feel comfortable doing it?
Exactly,
You
the
know?
how.
Yeah.
What's our next action steps?
Exactly. So whether that be getting a free consultation with a parent coach or with a therapist or with, you know, some other specialist, that is where you can take it. And you can brainstorm these issues before you have this conversation with your significant other of, you know, I was wanting to get your feedback on these 3 steps that we could take. Where do you think, or where are you comfortable starting?
Exactly.
So therefore you're sticking to your non-negotiable of like, look, I'm gonna seek out some help because I feel very strongly that this is what our child needs. But maybe it's a financial situation where you don't want to necessarily, or your spouse doesn't want to necessarily put in the money. So then the free consultation is very non-invasive. It's
Exactly.
like, let's just get the information. Let's see how this professional can really contribute to our lives and our situation now.
Exactly. And I want to point out too is that if you do feel like, okay, my partner and I are on a united front, we now want to seek out resources. Yeah, you could go the private route, most definitely, but there are also public ways to go about this as well, right? So a good way to think about it, and we talked about it in our last video, if your child is under 3, then you probably most likely want to now bring this your concerns up to the attention of your pediatrician, who then may refer you to the regional center, right? And then from there, they do intakes and assessments, and then they figure it out. Like, okay, here's the plan, you know? But the other thing too is that if your child is over 3, then you might have to go the public school route, right? So you want to find your local home school and speak to somebody there, and they'll put you in touch with the liaison of the special needs department or what have you. And then they can do an intake, try to figure out, okay, well, what are your concerns? What are some behaviors that are being brought up? Or maybe, somebody else has brought it to your attention, like a preschool teacher, or maybe, another coach, or maybe, somebody who was running my gym. It doesn't matter where the information came from, but that's kind of what you would talk about in the intake. Then from there, they have 30 days to make an assessment, right? And then from the assessment, they will determine whether or not you want to continue with this route or the other. But the neat thing is that there is, government mandated and state laws that say every child has a right to an education, right? Free and appropriate, right? So you could go the private route, but then the public route has all of these entities in place as well.
Great.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if your child is little, like we're talking before the age of 3 as well, like where you would seek out the pediatrician. But if your spouse, like I said, typically there's a spouse or a partner that spends more time with the child. So that's the one that's going to the My Gym and the Mommy and Me's and such. And those are the people that are exposed to other kids the same age as their child, the peers, right? So they have the opportunity to see, they're not quite there yet, or why are they not talking when all of their peers are talking, or different things like that. So
they're gauging the milestones.
Yeah, they're gauging the milestones. We're a big proponent for not necessarily comparing, and because every child develops at their own stage. But if it is an overwhelming majority of the peers that are different than or developing different than your child, that could potentially be something that would make you want to pay some closer attention.
Exactly.
So if your spouse doesn't ever get those opportunities, maybe enroll them in a meetup or a My Gym outing on the weekend where
invite your spouse so they can see that, in action, because maybe they don't. Well, my child's fine at home with me, but as soon as you put them in that social setting, oh, now I see what you're talking about. Yeah, exactly.
And so it's again this non-invasive way of let me just let you see what's going on. And so that's the best way to do it. It's just
so too. Again, it's speaking back to presenting facts, right?
Presenting facts. And anytime you're talking to your spouse, if you can get a third party, to chime in, or a third party source to chime in, it's going to be more well received, because typically that's just how it is. Your spouse doesn't want to hear you coming in and telling, because then it just sounds like finger pointing or criticism or something else. So if you get a third party source, even looking up articles, like short articles that you can put on their desk, so that they can read through them, or a short video such as this where they can just go ahead and see from a third party source what to look out for and how to proceed. So
I know that can be scary, right? And you really don't know, but this is why you picked your partner, right? And there's no shaming or blaming. Nobody's at fault. It's just coming to an understanding and acknowledgement of okay, so we need to change gears a little bit. Maybe we need to address something a little bit differently. And like we spoke to in the last video, if you can get over this hurdle, worst case scenario, okay, you figured it out and now you're getting the resources, right? Best case scenario, so those might have just been some of my hypersensitive concerns and everything's normal, right? You don't know, but as long as you do these action steps, you're going somewhere as opposed to nowhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. So, I see you saying that your shot is sideways. I think that might just be an orientation thing on setting on your phone. We have to shoot it this way, otherwise we can't. Yeah, we can't both be in the shot. So I apologize for that. That could be kind of frustrating.
That's good constructive feedback. Maybe we'll look into that.
Thank you for letting me know. And do you guys have any questions, comments, concerns for those of you still on? We'll wait a few seconds for those. Hopefully we'll be getting together soon again to talk about another topic. I'll go ahead and make sure I promote it and announce it so that if you guys are interested, you can come on and participate. Hopefully some question and answer sessions as well, where we can just you can pick our brains and come with your best shots. We're here for you. We're here to answer your questions.
Exactly.
So, anyways, I guess we'll call it, end of session. And we'll see you guys again next time. If you like this video, please like it, share it around, subscribe to my YouTube channel, again, To the Moon and Back Behavioral Consulting. And I'm on Facebook, I'm on Instagram. Well, you guys know I'm on Instagram, but yeah, those are great ways. Also have a private Facebook group that you can participate in, where I am actually very active in there. So if you have any questions or comments, concerns related to behavior, I can chime in. I also have professionals such as Amber that can chime in with other situations of specialty such as autism or special needs. So yeah, check us out there, and I will talk to you later.
Great. Thanks, Nikki, for inviting me, and hopefully we hear back from many of you soon.
Great.
Have a good one.
I'll leave a message below with some way to contact Amber directly if you guys are interested. All right? Take care. I'm Nikki Morrow, To the Moon and Back Behavioral Consulting. Hope you enjoyed, and thank you so much for watching.
Bye.
Bye-bye.